It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and joining us to talk about his upcoming lecture, The God of the Atheists and the God of Science, is Dr. Alex Giltner. Thanks for being here, Dr. Giltner.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you back so soon.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
I'm getting used to this radio thing. It's kind of, I like it.
Yeah. So, the God of Atheists.
Yes.
Is that an oxymoron?
It would seem to be. So one of the things that I'd be pointing out from the get-go is really two. One, the God that most atheists say that they're disproving is not the God that Christians or many traditions actually believe in at all.
Uh-huh.
So like for one, they'll, a Dawkins or a Harris will ask a question like, if God just made everything, who made God?
Uh-huh.
And yet what they don't understand is we're talking about the source of being itself. And so you don't ask, what's the source of the source? Or what's the tomato of the tomato? Uh-huh. If you're the maker of everything, you're not made. And so it sounds clever at the beginning, but it's actually not. It's actually what we call a category error in philosophy. So if I ask you, what time is the color red, Kyle?
Right.
How many hours are in a mile, Kyle?
Yeah.
It doesn't really work that way. And so, but it sounds clever. So, if I came in here and you were throwing a party and had all your buds, and I said, who threw the party? And you said, John did. And then I said, oh, yes, but who threw John? This is absurd. It's complete absurdity, but it sounds like it's an objection.
Yeah.
Or like, where do the train tracks end? They end there. Oh, but where does the end end? So these kinds of questions, these kinds of mistakes are like when they say, everybody disbelieves in Zeus with his lightning bolt and Thor with his hammer. I just go one god further. Mm-hmm. Zeus was created. He came from his father, Kronos, Thor, and Woden. These gods are gods that are in the universe. They're items among the items in the universe. That's not what we're talking about when we're talking about the transcendent, infinite God of the universe who created the universe, brought it into being. And so the God of the atheists, I don't believe in that God either.
Right.
So they might come to me and say, I don't believe in God. And I would say, well, if that's the God that you think is what we're talking about, I that's not my deal either. I think that's pretty absurd.
Yeah. That
I would worship a being that's in the universe just like I am. That's just a power play. Thor is greater than me, and so I guess he could scare me with his hammer, or could please me in a Marvel movie. But he is not my God in any way that has to do with the creation and sustenance of my being. And that's the God we're actually talking about.
Yeah. What about the God of science? Is that the same or different?
It's different. So the God of science portion is to get at this commonly held misconception that science and faith are somehow opposed to each other.
Sure.
And science is like the real facts, and faith is speculating about fairy dust and or whatever. And it's all the realm of opinion, and nobody really knows. And science is the real trustworthy knowledge.
Right.
We know things by science. Well, two things. One, if we are positing the creator of the universe, we're positing the creator of science as well. So I'm not anti-science. I always have to say this. If it weren't for science, I couldn't have science fiction. So I want science in the world. I want Star Wars.
Is that the only reason?
Maybe there's more.
I don't need science as long as I've got Star Wars.
Well, and I unfortunately had a car accident, and thanks to medical science, they were able to do surgery, and I can walk around right now, and that's pretty amazing. And I'm super jazzed and pumped about all that.
Yeah.
What I don't like is when scientists assume that they are the authority on what is true and what is false, and then say that faith is not real knowledge, having no sense of what we mean by faith. So the problem with scientists who hold these views like scientism and naturalism and materialism is, one, those views are absurd. If all that exists is material world, then what are you going to do with numbers? Kyle, give me 17.
Right.
I mean, you can't do it.
What?
Yeah, you can give me 17 coconuts or $17, but you can't give me the number 17. You can't give me justice. You can't take justice for a walk or put it in a box to pull out for a rainy day. So there's all kinds of things that you'd have to get rid of if you were to maintain this claim that science is the only thing that can prove truth. You cannot demonstrate justice or 17 or any value in a laboratory. You can't even just demonstrate in a laboratory the statement that science is the only way to know the truth. How would you even demonstrate that? If the scientific method requires observation of sensory phenomena, empirical data, run through experiments based on a hypothesis, tested over and over to identify a pattern, how would you do that with the statement, science is the only way to know the truth?
So would you call it a self-refuting
Yes.
proposition?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The second thing is that...
This is so awesome. I love this.
Why?
I just really enjoy this conversation.
Okay. Yeah. Well, me too.
Yeah,
me
it's
too.
really good.
I like talking with you. And so the second thing, though, is that not only is science provisional because it can't demonstrate its own truth value, it has to presuppose other philosophical propositions to say that it's true, like truth exists. So science needs propositions it cannot demonstrate by its own methods to get off the ground. Science can't do science unless we already know we can know truth, for example. But science can't prove that truth exists. So not only is it limited in that it cannot provide its own rationale, and secondly, it's completely provisional, meaning science is all based on empirical data. And if new data comes in or old data does something different, we have to change the formula. So there's this great book by Thomas Kuhn called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And he talks about how science hasn't just been aggregating knowledge as if we're all throwing scientific knowledge on a pile. Science has been aggregating data, but how to understand the data, that model has changed over time. Galileo posited, no, the sun is the center. But he had a heliocentric universe. Newton posited Newtonian mechanics, which are great for cars, but not very good for subatomic particles or stars. The theory of relativity is really good for stars, and quantum mechanics is very good for subatomic particles. The way we understand the world through science has changed by models.
Sure.
And these models generally displace the model that came before it. Quantum mechanics and theory of relativity, for example, displacing Newtonian mechanics is the way to understand these far reaches of the universe, whether at the microscopic or even beyond the microscopic and at the astronomical level. Now, what's interesting, just as an aside, is that quantum mechanics and theory of relativity are based on opposing propositions. They can't both be true in their fundamental propositions about the way that things move. And so there are these speculative physicists who their whole job is to figure out how do these two theories that both give us good answers, how do they fit together?
Yeah.
But all that's to say, again, it's provisional. If we bust open a quark and we get a Higgs boson, that might change something. But if we bust open the Higgs boson, maybe that changes things too. And we have to re-understand and recalculate and do all this stuff. It's provisional. It's not certain knowledge. Okay, so I tell my students this. There's provisional knowledge, which means we think we know, but new evidence could change what we think. Then there's conditional knowledge.
And we have plenty of historical data to support that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the examples that you gave.
Right. I'm not...
Times that people thought they were right and they were actually wrong.
And we have tons of science doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Again, this is not anti-science.
Right.
I love science figuring out how to fix spines.
Yeah.
Science is a great thing, but it is provisional. New knowledge or old knowledge or data working in different ways can change the way we do it. Conditional knowledge is a little bit more certain. So if someone's running, they're moving. I know for certain that if they're running, they're moving.
Right.
But I don't know if they're running necessarily. If you're in the room, I can tell. But say if you're out there, I don't know if you're running or not.
Right.
If you're running, you're definitely moving, and that's for certain. But if you're not, I don't know.
Yeah.
Then there's necessary knowledge. Knowledge like nothing can come from nothing. Or something cannot come from nothing. Nothing cannot produce something. This we can know with 100% logical certitude. Okay? The law of non-contradiction. Two opposing contradictory propositions cannot both be true at the same time.
Sure.
You can't be both Kyle and not Kyle at the same time.
Although relativists would argue with
course.
that, right?
Right. And all they have to do is start. So I was on Facebook. I'm not on it anymore, thank God. But I was on Facebook, and this relativist is like trying to argue why, objective truth doesn't exist. And I was like, what? Why is this guy trying to get us all to agree with him that it's true,
right,
that there is no truth? Like, why is he wasting all this energy trying to get us to believe this? It's not even practical, much less illogical. It's not even practical.
Yeah.
But anyway, science gives us great truths. And usually they're stable, but sometimes they change. Logic gives us truths that are 100% true, and that never changes, not a once. The law of non-contradiction has always been true. The law of non-contradiction, the universe didn't wake up one day and say, I think I'm going to stop contradicting myself. No, the law of non-contradiction is the case, and it always has been the case, which means logical proofs demonstrate more than scientific proofs ever could. And so this gets to my next claim in the lecture, which is that the scientist, if he wants to believe in she wants to believe in materialism or naturalism or scientism, which is the view that only science can demonstrate truth, they actually end up having to have more faith than I am willing to put into anything. Yeah. Now, this is not talking about faith as a supernatural gift, but just faith in believing things that are beyond the realm of the empirical world.
Right.
I believe that the universe came into existence because an infinitely powerful being, who has always been the case and will never not be the case, through his infinite will, brought it into being and gave it its current order and shape and all of that. A scientist has to believe that either the universe has just always existed and then deal with, or not a scientist, but a person who's a scientistic person or a naturalist or a materialist or denies the existence of God at all, has to believe that somehow an infinite regress is the case. So, the turtle's holding up the world. What's holding up the turtle? Another turtle. What's holding up that turtle? Oh, it's turtles all the way down. Okay, you got to either deal with that, or you got to say, as one physicist actually said to me, I was talking to this physicist, and I said, if you believe the universe began, how does it come from nothing? I believe an infinite being who's always been there brought it into being. And he said, stuff happens. That's not actually what he said.
Okay.
But he said something. Yeah.
Use your imagination.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
He said, stuff happens. And I'm sitting there. He's the scientist. I'm the theologian. And I'm the one who's like, what are you talking? You just believe that something popped into existence out of nothing?
Right.
And he tried some stuff like, quarks do that all the time. No, they don't. Quarks do wink out one place and appear in another place, but that's not popping out of nothing. They were there before. They didn't pop into existence all by themselves.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the point is, it actually, in my opinion, and I think more than my opinion, it's logically demonstrable that one, atheists are almost never disproving the God that we actually believe in. Two, logical proofs get you a lot more than scientific proofs can. And three, a lot of the propositions that these materialistic and naturalistic worldview holders actually believe take way more faith than I'm not willing to believe that something can just pop into existence from nothing.
Right.
Call me crazy, but I feel like that's unreasonable. I do not have a blind faith. I have a reasonable faith that has been carried on through thousands of years, people making these arguments, showing that it is logical, it is reasonable, it is rational to believe in God. And so that's basically what I'll be talking about.
I love it. When is it? Where is it?
Oh, yeah. It's October 16th, which is it's Wednesday night, 7 p.m. in the Achatz Hall. It's a nice, just remodeled building on the campus, and it will be in the Parkview Auditorium, and 7 o'clock, yeah.
All right. And there's a whole series of these, too.
Yeah. So the Faith and Lecture series is something that the Philosophy and Theology Department does every year. And next month, we're having our own Adam DeVille talk about his new book on the church sex scandal and share some thoughts about that. And then next semester, we'll have several others up to share their research and show how what we do actually has a great impact and relevance to culture today.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Giltner.
It was great talking with you. Yeah, a lot of fun.